Hello again, and welcome back to Legally Cited. This is Jesse, aka BGFH, and I am back for a hardware review this time. And don't worry, it is not another headphone review, I promise. I know I've done a lot of those on this channel before, but this time we are looking at a new computer component that I just finally picked up about a week or so ago. We are looking at my new mechanical keyboard. It is the Ducky One mechanical keyboard. They do have a variety of models under the Ducky One brand. This one basically has the speed switches and the white keyboard backlighting. So I will try to remember again to put a link to the one that I got in the description below. Picked it up while browsing through Micro Center the other day, like about a week ago, and I've been looking at getting a mechanical keyboard for quite a while. And believe it or not, you know, you buy just a cheapo keyboard, it's pretty straightforward, but a mechanical keyboard, there's actually a lot to it. So here's the box that it came in. I mean, nothing, you know, nothing too special. Just got your logo there, got some kind of neat artwork there. Got your, sorry for the glare, I'm trying to get this where it doesn't glare. The Ducky One. Like I said, it's a fairly plain box, but got a few little bits of information there. I'll try to focus on that so you don't get as much glare. But yeah, very simple box. We don't care about the box. We care about this guy. Here is the keyboard itself. It is, like I said, it's a mechanical keyboard here. And you notice that the whole thing isn't backlit right now. I'll show you some of the things it does, but it actually has different backlit modes. So you know, it is WASD, your first person, third person, action-y, you know, gaming mode, or gaming keys. These are used all the time, and I thought that was only appropriate to light those up. But yeah, so before I go into the keyboard itself, I want to talk a little bit about mechanical keyboards in general, because you fall down the rabbit hole of actually, like, if you want to look into a keyboard, mechanical keyboard, first you're saying, why would you want one? Mechanical keyboards, a couple of reasons. Sometimes, like, especially for people who grew up back when I did, back in the DOS days, some of you might remember the classic IBM keyboards, those really heavy, clickety-clackety, like, beasts of a keyboard. You just kind of had to pound on to get to, you had to kind of pound on to get to work. But they were kind of, there was a tactile, it was this satisfying tactile aspect of it that's kind of cool. And some people want to have that back. There are different types of mechanical keyboards, and that gets into like the switches that are inside. So remember when I said these are speed switches? I think the packaging itself really wasn't clear. They said speed switches, but I did some more research, and it seems like these are actually like red switches. That doesn't refer to the backlighting color. That actually refers to, there's a few companies that do the actual hardware switches for mechanical keyboards, but one of them is these Cherry MX switches. And the different color switches actually tell you a few things about how the keyboard will handle. So is it really clickety? Is it really loud? Do you have to hammer on the keys really, really hard, or do you have to have like a light touch? Are they good for gamers? Are they good for, you know, more for typists? I'm not going to go into all of those because I don't remember all of them myself. But you have things like the blue switches, which I think are typically more, those are louder. So when you're typing on them, if you're in a place where you don't want to disturb people, blue is probably not the kind that you want. You have the brown, I think brown and red are the more quieter kind. But but there's green, there's a good at least half a dozen, almost a dozen variants, and there's a couple people, like I think green is for Razer, like the Razer brand. A couple of the companies make their own. They kind of have their own coloring and key setup. So basically, like the switches in your typical keyboards, you know, like your membrane keyboards, which most people will have, basically under each key you're going to have like this little, there's a few rubber pieces that are under there, and when they make connection, it kind of completes a circuit, and that's how you do the key. The problem with those is that they actually wear out over time, especially if you're a gamer and you're really hammering on the keys a lot, or if you're typing, you know, you're at work and you know, type reports and all that constantly. Your lifespan on a regular keyboard is not going to be quite as, probably quite as long. And like I said, some people just really like the tactile nature of a mechanical keyboard. So you're going to get better longevity, you're going to get, you know, a different feel. And so when I was visiting Micro Center, I liked the fact that they had these on display, because I didn't want, you know, I record a lot of video, obviously. So if I'm playing a game and all you hear is me talking and me going, you know, a whole bunch of hitting keys, hopefully that'll be a little bit minimized. You'll probably still hear it to some degree with this keyboard, but it won't be as bad as it could be. So this keyboard itself, the Ducky One mechanical keyboard here, it's actually kind of thick, you know. It's kind of, you know, it's heavy. I mean, it's like, I got this cheapo, let me see if I can grab it. Here we go. Look at, you know, for crimini's sake. So here's my little Logitech keyboard. Look at how thin that is. That's my Logitech keyboard. And it, like I said, I really like this keyboard. It was like a $10 Amazon purchase a few years ago. Works fine. But this one over here is a little bit, definitely thicker. It's more sturdy. Even the casing is a lot more sturdy. You can, you know, it's sturdier, it's thicker. The other thing that this casing does, when I looked at the mechanical keyboards in the store, what they often do is some keyboards, they don't have a casing all the way up to the keys. So what you might notice is there'll be like a little gap, especially like if you feel where the keys are. On a regular keyboard, you know, the buttons themselves go right down to the casing. Well, a lot of them, depending on how the cases were designed, a lot of the mechanical keyboards, you have this empty space between the casing and the bottom of the key. And that's because the switches, you know, you're not doing these little thin rubber things. You're doing these actual mechanical switches in there. So like you have this kind of a gap in between those keys, and those are supposed to be there because I wondered about that originally myself. So the casing is nice. There's no pass-through or anything like that. There's no there's no hand rest. There's no really, there's no extra frills as far as, you know, buttons and things. You have your standard keyboard layout. And of course, I'm very specific. I have to have the long backspace key. Don't you dare give me the tiny backspace key and the weird L enter key. That's horrible. You got to have the arrow keys in their normal position. Horizontal 6-pack. None of this vertical or weird mumbo jumbo that some keyboards try to get away with. Your number pad. And then you do have a couple of extra keys. So like you get like your you got like a volume thing up here. It looks like you got a mute, and what was that one, like a calendar or something it's supposed to be? But you got a couple of extra keys. But yeah, then you have some options for backlighting. So I got a function key down here right next to the control. If I hit function F10, check that out. Now my whole thing is backlit white, and I can toggle between a few different modes. This one's kind of cool. It's kind of like this, like a gradual like fade in effect. See how it starts out? Excuse me. It starts out and then it fades in, and then it fades out again. It's kind of like a really neat effect. And then I can do, okay, this one I think is like a, it's, they kind of randomly cycle between like which keys are lit up at a time, so they're not all lit up, but they kind of do like a scattered randomy thing. Oh, and then this one, I don't know, I'm not quite sure what that one does. I'm not sure what that mode does. I think when you hit a key, it does something, like it kind of does this splash effect. I'm not sure what that key does, or what that mode is. There's one more. Yeah, this one's kind of cool. It was doing it. Maybe it's hard to see. What it kind of, it does this weird little thing where it goes, it kind of zooms outward, and so it almost does this like wave ripple effect. Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, that one, so if I hit a key, it'll do the ripple thing. And then I think we're to off. And so yeah, you have a few different modes. Now you notice that the WASD is still there. So that was function F10. If I do function F11, now they're off. And function, okay, there it goes on. So it'll toggle between off and on with there, and then function F12, I believe, will toggle the arrow keys on and off. So if I didn't want the backlit keyboard, but I wanted my WASD and my arrow keys, for whatever reason, I could toggle those on as well. Now, I do happen to know they also have some, what's cool is you don't need any software. You don't need any drivers on your computer to control any of this. It's all internal in the keyboard itself. So I don't need any drivers for that. And there are like some built-in like macro things, like you can do some sort of macros and stuff, but I have not played with that. And you can even do like custom lighting. So if you want certain other keys, I looked at the manual and I looked at another video that someone had did on a similar keyboard from Ducky, and it was a really nice video. I can maybe even link to that one, but the macros and stuff, that's something I just don't really get into. I just want to use it as a good keyboard. So if you're interested in that, I'm not really going to cover the macros for this keyboard. But just know that I guess you can kind of do that. The other thing that I will say about the keyboard itself as far as features, it does support what they call N-key rollover, which basically means like especially some of your membrane keyboards, you'll have, when you hit multiple keys at a time, some of the membrane keyboards, you can only hit so many keys at a time, and then you'll get kind of like an overflow, so it won't register all your keys. N-key rollover is basically you can hit, a bunch of keys at the same time and it'll register. And that's really helpful for gaming, because a lot of times I'm holding W to go forward. I might be strafing at the same time with A or D. I might be running with the shift key. And then while I'm doing that, I might hit a key to jump, a space bar, or I might use a key to throw a grenade or to reload. And you're doing all kinds of stuff, and then you combine that with your mouse, and you're doing all kinds of stuff. So, you just have the N-key rollover to do that. And now there is a switch where you can switch it down to under the keyboard, where you can switch it down to what do they call it? I think it was like 6-key rollover, but I don't know why you would ever want to do that. Maybe older operating systems don't support N-key rollover as well or as much. That's really the only reason I could really think of why you wouldn't want N-key rollover. But yeah, so that's really the keyboard itself. Before I wrap up here, what do I think of it? I've been using it quite a bit, actually, the last week. I've played some games with it. I've written a few longer documents. I've written several long emails to people. I have actually done my taxes online. And I've done, your typical web browsing, using it to search on the internet, or, your shorter tasks, that kind of a thing too. And overall, I really am getting to like it. It did take some getting used to because, like I said, this one, it's mechanical. It's not super clicky, but I'm going to go into Start menu. I just want to go into something N-O. I'm doing this one-handed, remember, T-E, P. There, now I'm in Notepad and I won't hurt anything. So sorry, I got Notepad up there. So if I just, just hitting keys. There, I'm moving forward. Boom. So there is a little bit of a sound to it, but you don't have that extra, like, springy mechanical sound like some of the older keyboards do. And it's not, you don't have to put a super amount of pressure. Like some of the keyboards, you actually have to put a lot of pressure on the mechanical keys to get them to press. This one, there's almost kind of an art to it where, like, on a membrane keyboard, you actually kind of hit the keys and you're always hitting them. You're always kind of pushing them to the bottom, the bottom of the travel, so that it actually, makes the connection and types what you want it to type. This one, there's almost a point like where you don't have to hit it as hard. So if you develop a soft touch and you kind of get to know, like, I can bottom out, but even if I don't, I can kind of boom, 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 boom. So I can get pretty fast if I want, But it does take a little bit of getting used to, because for the first couple days, I found myself actually, either hitting it too hard and really clanging on them, or I would hit too soft and then I would kind of miss a key. So it was just kind of finding the right balance of, like, how do I want to type? How do I type on this keyboard? But I'm starting, there's, like I said, there's no funny layouts or anything. There's no curvature, anything like that. It's pretty much it. The only problem that I'm still having, and it's not with the keyboard, it's probably with my years and years of probably not the best typing posture, shall we say, is, I guess I've kind of developed a habit where I have my hand up, but I don't, I kind of rest my palm on, like, I kind of lower it. You're supposed to type with your wrist up like this. And, sometimes I rest it down, and you really don't want to do that on this keyboard. So what's happened to me a couple of times is I've been typing in an email or a document, and I'll, like I said, you don't have to be super sensitive on this, so I'll end up just hitting the control key with the palm of the side of the palm of my hand, and I'll hit it just enough where it registers. As I'm typing, then I hit an A. Well, you know what Control A does? Select all. And then if you do Control A and then you start typing, what does it do? It, you've selected all the text, and you type, and then all your other text is gone, and you are typing a new blank document. So that has actually happened to me, I think, twice. And luckily I caught it right away as I'm, zoning out and, I'm still typing. Thankfully, thank God for Control Z. Thank God for the undo feature. Control Z, baby. But yeah, so it's just basically I have to make sure, don't be so lazy, do a little bit better keyboard posture, because the keys themselves are a little bit taller. The other keyboard over here, the control key, it's not as high off the keyboard, so I can kind of get by with, you know, if I have my hand here, you know, I'm not really going to hit that control key, and even if I do, I have to hit it pretty hard for it to bottom out. So I'm not going to have that problem, which I've never really had until I went over to this mechanical keyboard. So little things like that just to notice. But yeah, like I said, I've been thinking about getting a mechanical keyboard for a while now. But like I said, just go look up just do a Google search for mechanical keyboard switches. And, you know, I think there's a PC Gamer guide. There's a couple of other guides. And just looking into, like, you know, you start looking at the switches and the travel times and the how they're clicky and what kind of feel they have. And you're like, who knew a keyboard was actually so complicated? You know, usually people just get the, you know, the cheapo membrane keyboard that their computer comes with and just go with it. But, you know, if you especially, you know, blind users heavily use the keyboard. Maybe you want something a little bit more tactile. You know, maybe you want, you know, something a little retro, a little bit of, you know, and maybe you just want something that's going to hold up better over time, because the lifespan of a mechanical keyboard is generally supposed to last longer. So, you know, if that's interesting, you said do your research. I would definitely recommend going to a computer store of some kind and physically, you know, physically kind of typing on the keyboards, the display keyboards, to see, you know, like, is this one too clicky? Is it too loud? You know, does it feel right? Because like I said, you want to balance how, you know, how loud it is versus how it feels. You know, you're doing videos or audio recording, probably don't want it super clicky, or if you're in an office where there's people right next to you, you know, that kind of a thing. The only other thing about the keyboard is on the back, it's actually not hardwired into the keyboard. It's a micro USB cord, so you can actually unplug it. So if for whatever reason your cord shorts out, just go buy a micro USB and shove it in the back again. So that's really about it. That is a look at the Ducky One mechanical keyboard with the speed switches and white backlighting. I will again try to remember to put a link into the description below. I got it at Micro Center, so I'll put the exact link in there so you get the right exact SKU that I did, the model that I did. And it's about 120 bucks. So, you know, mechanical keyboards are not cheap. They're, you know, they range anywhere between low end 50, 60 bucks all the way, you know, over 100 bucks. So, but I figure as much as I use a computer, as much as I type, worthwhile investment to check out. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79. And with this final shot of the whole keyboard here, I will talk to you guys again later.